Christian. Today we're going to read about Japan as a part of our Asia unit. We're going to start with some fun facts. Are you ready? All right, let's read. So the first fun fact, Japan has 5.52 million vending machines. Wow, 5.52 million vending machines is a lot, right? Right. The next fact, around 24 billion pairs of chopsticks are used in Japan each year. 24 billion pairs of chopsticks is also a lot. Have you ever tried sushi before? Yes? Nice. I love raw and cooked sushi myself. Did you try the sushi using chopsticks? Yes. Those can be tricky sometimes, right? Right, I agree. Yes, it can be difficult. All right, the next fact, Japanese trains are among the world's most punctual. Their average delay is just 18 seconds. So the bullet train there, that's what they're saying, is that the average delay is just 18 seconds. Yes, that's what we're getting to, is that it's a fast train. All right. Okay, so the first thing we're going to do is look at Japan's geography. The map on the left shows how high the mountains are above the sea level. If there's many mountains that make up the land, do you think that this is a good thing? Right. It's not necessarily a good thing because it makes life there more difficult. We'll get to some more examples in a second. All right. How might the Ring of Fire impact life in Japan? If we look closely at the map, the Ring of Fire is along the coastline of many countries. The Ring of Fire is a group of tectonic plates in the Pacific Ocean that cause earthquakes. What happens sometimes after an earthquake? Correct, tsunamis. What would the Japanese people need to do after a tsunami? What would the Japanese people need to do after a tsunami? Would they need to rebuild? Yes, they would need to rebuild their buildings if it destroyed the city. All right, wow. It says that Japan suffers 1,500 earthquakes every year. Tokyo has been destroyed from earthquakes and tsunamis from 1608 to 1945. On average, once every 5 years. That's a lot of rebuilding, right? Yes. All right. Silently observe the photos of life in Japan on the next 4 slides. So let's look at the pictures. Tokyo Water Park. Wow. It looks like they're having fun in the water, right? Yes, it looks like they're smiling and having fun. There seems to be many people crossing the street. Yes, it's crowded. It looks crowded in that picture. It looks like that train is already full, but the conductor is cramming more people in. What word describes that train? Yes, you're right, it's crowded. That's too many bicycles. Do you think it would be easy or difficult to find your bike among all these bikes? Difficult, right? They all look very similar, don't they? Yes. So, what can you infer or assume about life in Japan based off of the pictures? Can we assume that there's a lot of people living in Japan or a few? Yes, you're right, there's many. So because there's many people there, do you think having a car is a good idea or a bad idea? Why? Yes, again, because it's very crowded. If everyone drove a car, there would be endless traffic, right? You're right. So now we'll move on to vocabulary. Population density. The average number of people who live in an area. It measures how crowded a place is. So if we look at this map, it shows how populated each part of Japan is. So this fact here says more people live in the red areas than all of the gray combined. So it looks like all of Asia has more people living in it than the whole world. That's pretty amazing, huh? I think so too. It says here the landmass of Japan is roughly the size of California, but it has 40% of the population of the US. It says here that Japan has 126 million people, while the United States has 332 million people. So again, if we look at this picture from space, they use a lot of electricity in Tokyo. 96 people per square mile in the United States is the average, but in Tokyo it says there's 16,000 people living per square mile. Yes, many people, you're right. The next vocabulary word is megalopolis, which is an extremely large, densely populated area or group of cities. It says here there's 36.5 million people in Tokyo alone. That's a lot. The next vocabulary word is arable land. Japan has little arable land or land good for farming due to its rugged, to the rugged mountains and volcanic landscape. It says here 83% of Japan is mountainous. The next vocabulary word is adaptation, the way people adjust to living in a certain area. The last one is innovation, a new idea or invention that makes life easier. How might living in a city with a high population density affect a typical home? Do you think that a person would live in a home or in an apartment? An apartment, you're right, to save space. How about transportation? Do you think that a lot of people drive? We said, no, you're right, not a lot of people drive. What would they ride instead? You're right, they would ride the bicycles like we saw earlier, or the train, correct. And the last thing, the way that people use the land, like for farming, how do you think that would impact them? Would it be easy to farm or difficult to farm? Difficult, yes, because the mountains don't allow us to farm on there. So it sounds like Japan has to import many of its goods. Well, let's move on. With so many people crammed into a small area, how do the Japanese adapt their way of living? It says that we need to fill in the charts, but they've already been filled in for us. So let's read along. Transportation. It would be good for them to build extensive public transportation, like the bullet train, or using their bikes, to minimize congestion. Remember what we said earlier about traffic? Right. If everyone had a car, it would be too much traffic. Also, they could drive compact cars to reduce traffic, to make it less. They could also construct parking towers to save space. Also, they build earthquake-proof structures above and below the ground to maximize their space. Right, exactly. They build high buildings. Mountainsides are cut for terrace farming, and city buildings are used as vertical farms. So we might find farms on top of apartment buildings, again, and also on the sides of the mountains. Another fun fact, square watermelons are grown by Japanese farmers for easier stack and store. Do you see the square? Wow, that's pretty cool, right? Yeah, I know. I would love to eat one of those square melons too. All right. Also, for their land use, they have to build underground chambers and tunnels for flood control. Why do you think that is? What did we talk about earlier? You're right, tsunamis. Good job, good memory. Public health. They could plant rooftop gardens. Farming again. On top of the apartment to lower city temperatures and to help clean polluted air. Wow, recycling is required by law to reduce waste. Yes, that is a good thing. Public health. They wear face masks. The people wear face masks to prevent the spread of disease in crowded areas. That's also a good thing, right? Yes. And for housing adaptations, it says here, Japanese homes are smaller than those in the United States. Yes, small. A typical person in Tokyo has about 170 square feet of living space. A typical person in Washington, D.C. has about 740 square feet of space. I still think that's very small either way, right? Yes, that would be difficult to live in that small of a space. They could also design multi-use rooms with miniature items to maximize living areas inside their apartment. Everything kind of has to be small so we have enough room. And the last thing is for innovations in housing. They build capsule hotels for efficiency. Look, it looks like they just open the door, get in, and go to sleep. Do you think that would be a good idea or a bad idea? I think so too. All they have to do is just get into the pod and go to sleep. Well, thank you so much for reading with me today. I hope you enjoyed yourself. Yes, I did too.